Hi guys, how's it going? Brian from Boas here. Holdbacks are definitely one of my favorite aspects of boa breeding, and every year I look forward to selecting a few choice offspring to raise up as future breeders. Today I want to show you some of my 2017 holdback animals that are now approximately 3 years old, so you have an idea about some of the future projects that I have going on in my breeding group. If you find this video helpful, or you just like to look at beautiful snakes, I'd really appreciate if you would subscribe to the Brian Boas YouTube channel so you don't miss out on any future boa videos. You've probably heard me say it before, but selecting the holdbacks for the year is one of my favorite parts of boa breeding. It's almost like being a kid on Christmas morning. I've been very lucky in having some nice litters and been able to hold back quite a number of animals. So at this point my collection is about 50% holdbacks. And I think that the best way to grow a world-class breeding group is to hold back animals that best embody your vision for what you want in your boas. So if you're relatively new to boa breeding, I would highly recommend that you seriously think about keeping back at least a few animals from each litter. In some of my previous videos I've shown you younger holdbacks from 2018 or 2019, but today I thought it would be helpful to show you some 3-year-old holdbacks that were born in 2017. And these animals I expect will be ready to breed at the very earliest in 2022 for the babies in 2022. More likely their first babies will come in 2023 or 2024. And this will also give you an idea about the size of a 3-year-old subadult boa constrictor given a slow-grown feeding regimen. First, a couple Suriname true red-tailed boas that I held back from 2017. And these are really special in that they were sired by Prometheus, who's one of my most famous true red-tailed boas. This is the last litter he produced and likely will be the last litter because unfortunately he's quite old and not a very good breeder. I actually had a pretty small litter from him. It was only about 5 or 6 babies. And I kept 2 females, and this is one of them. And so this particular animal, you can see, has this beautiful lilac, pinkish, purplish coloration. Kind of jagged saddles, somewhat peaked, but a little bit asymmetric. And then the very long, bright red tail, like her father. So this is altogether a really nice looking boa constrictor, red-tailed boa. She's not quite as busy or dirty, speckly as her father, but very nice looking animal nonetheless. And so my idea behind this holdback is that I have some animals that are also sired by Prometheus from a different female that were born in 2016. And because it appears that Prometheus's breeding days are over, this way I'll be able to cross the half siblings, so this female with one of my 2016 males. And so the resulting offspring will have a 50% contribution from the famous Prometheus. And this way I also limit the inbreeding because I'm not breeding full siblings together. These will only be half siblings. And then the babies I can outcross further. But I just want to get that beautiful long red tail and the high contrast and the really cool looking markings that made Prometheus famous. And so unfortunately this is going to be a few years ahead. I would anticipate at the very earliest babies from this project would be ready in 2023 and maybe not till 2024. This is the other 2017 holdback female Prometheus bloodline Suriname red-tailed boa. And this one has distinctive looks compared to her sister. I really love the shape of the saddles on this animal. They just look different from any other red tail I've seen. So she's got these somewhat peaked but also blocky saddles, and they have this little circle in the middle of the background pattern, the lighter pattern. Really cool, and as I said, I haven't seen this before in any of my Surinames. I've seen similar markings in some of my Venezuelans, but it's cool that it showed up in this particular female Suriname. She's also really colorful. She's got slightly darker background color than her sister, but all kinds of pink and purple blushing. Just really gorgeous color highlights. And of course the long bright red tail. So you can see that this animal is maybe 3 feet. These are growing relatively slowly. They're currently eating a small rat about every 2 weeks. They may move up to a medium rat in about a year, maybe early next year. But this is the normal size for a 3-year-old Suriname true red tail that hasn't been overfed. They grow really slowly, and you got to just be really patient. And these animals should be at least 5, if not 6 years old before entering into the breeding trials. So something to look forward to. And as I said, I'm really excited about this 50% Prometheus true red-tailed boa project. In 2017, I had a nice litter of pure Rio Bravo bloodline Tarahumara mountain dwarf boas. And this is the male that I held back. And you can see he's got a lot of pink. If you look at his belly and sides, there's a lot of pink color that comes through. And then overall, the dark markings. I really love all the different shades of brown that you see in these animals. Kind of a dark chocolate color on top of a lighter mocha, and a lot of caramel highlights. I'm almost sound like I'm talking about food here. He also has really cool dark head markings. I always try to select the animals that have the most symmetrical and dark head markings to hold back. Although some pure Tarahumara, they don't have quite as nice head markings, and they're still pure Tarahumara. So you can see the small size of this guy. He's not quite 3 feet long. He probably will put on about another foot before he's ready to breed, which should be a few years in the future. Great dwarf boa size. You can see how chilly he is. The Tarahumara also have a real chill personality. You can take them out and they just kind of hang around. They don't move around as much as some other boas. I wouldn't call them the ball python of boas, though, as someone actually referred to them recently. They're definitely a lot more active, and to me more interesting than ball pythons. So Tarahumara boas, this is one of my favorite localities that I try to produce every year. And here is a 2017 female holdback Tarahumara mountain boa. So this female doesn't quite have as much pink as the male, but still a lot of pink and some really nice dark markings. You can see the symmetry of the head markings and the beautiful high contrast dark markings. These boas, as I said before, might be the ideal boa for someone that doesn't have a lot of space and they don't want a huge snake. So I've kept and bred these guys in the Iris CB110 tubs. These are the underbed storage containers, and they would also do well in these Vision 30 by 40 inch boa tubs. So definitely not a giant snake. These snake animals are no bigger than corn snakes when they're adult. Right now I have them feeding on small rats, and they'll probably stay on small rats for the next year or two. And then ultimately they'll be eating medium rats when they're ready to breed. And these guys potentially could be ready to have their first babies in 2022, although it might be 2023 by the time I get some babies from these 2017 Tarahumaras. One last type of boa that I have holdbacks from 2017 is another favorite dwarf locality boa, and that's the qual key boa. And these animals are descended from animals that were isolated on a small island off the coast of Belize. And because of the small amounts of food available, they evolved into a much smaller size than their mainland counterparts. And as adults, they're really not that much bigger than the Tarahumara mountain boas, in the 4 to 5 foot range. This 3-year-old female is about 3 feet. She's maybe a little longer than the Tarahumara that I just showed you. They have this beautiful silvery steel gray coloration. They're not quite totally anerythristic, although they lack most of the red pigment. Sometimes they have a little bit as babies, but typically as adults they have this beautiful silvery color, and you can see how nice and white the belly is. Looking at her tail, if you look really closely, you can still see a little bit of red tints, but as they become older and older, that kind of fades to a more black and white or silver coloration. So they are dwarf boas like the Tarahumara, But behaviorally they're a little different. You can see they move around a little bit more and they tend to squeeze a little bit more. Although I won't call them squeezy. They're not going to cut off the circulation or do any damage like that. And they're a real cool boa that, like the Tarahumara, can be kept in a relatively small space. So if you're looking for a small animal that you don't have a lot of space for a cage, this might be one to look at. I recently had a litter in 2020 of crawl key babies, and they're half siblings to this one. And so this will give you an idea about how the baby will look when it's 3 years old, in case you're considering acquiring one of those babies. And finally, this is a male Holdback 2017 crawl key dwarf boa. You can see his pattern is a little bit different than the female. He has a little bit more speckling and background color. And the pattern can vary a little bit in the crawl key babies. I've seen that quite a few of them have a partially striped pattern with some striping towards their tail, although this guy doesn't. But one thing that's kind of hard to get across is they have this beautiful, almost lilac pink coloration to their sides. It's kind of hard to see, but it's almost like a purplish overtone. And it just goes really nice with the steel gray silvery coloration. They're really beautiful boas, and I really like handling them. They're a little more responsive than the Tarahumara, you know, a little more interactive. Real cool boa, you know, to take out and admire, and you know, you can just admire the musculature of this boa. Even though it's a dwarf, it's every bit as powerful inch per inch as a much larger boa, even an anaconda. So real cool pet animal or animal for your locality collection. So I hope this video was helpful and maybe let you know about what I look for in my holdbacks and what projects are in the future here at Brian Boas. As always, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to write them below or send them my way. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy your boas.